Hey y'all, welcome to another edition of the High Desert Ranch and Homestead channel. I'm Robert, and today I'm going to get a few more things off my chest, and hopefully you can get some tips along the way and learn something a little bit as it relates to the hogs. So come on, join me, and let's get. All right, so it's the winter time, as you can see, and there's not a lot as far as what can be done around here. And so I've been watching just some YouTube videos like we all are doing right now, like you're doing right now. And there's something that bothers me, and it shouldn't, but I guess because, to use that cliche, I care too much, and it's this, is there's a lot of misinformation out there. I know there's different ways to do things depending on where you're at as far as in your region, or there's just different ways depending on what you're trying to do and accomplish. I understand that, but when there's just outright false information being put out there, whether you want to call it clickbait, whatever you're going to call it, that bothers me. And the good Lord willing, if things work out this year, I'd love to revive the hog business. That was one of the things my grandfather did. He ran hogs, sheep, and then cattle, and he had quite an operation towards the latter end of his life as far as all those different animals are concerned. So I would love to be able to take this property right here and start raising some hogs again, feeder hogs, even sows and boars, and start doing some of that kind of thing. But that's, time will tell. Clearly I can't do anything right now. There's still several inches of snow on the ground, which, believe it or not, we need a lot more. Things just aren't looking good. It's been 3 weeks to the day since we've had any kind of snow. And so temperatures have been really cold. We're barely even getting above freezing, if we're even lucky to get above freezing for high temperatures. But either way, once the snow thaws and melts and the ground thaws, I'll be able to hopefully do some hog pens. But I know for some of you, you're going to probably be getting to that before me, and this is the time of year where you want to plan, like I say. So there's a few hog pen tips that I want to give you folks, because there's just a lot of bad information out there, and just things that people just do something and then they put out a video, and then a whole bunch of people, unfortunately, that don't know what they're doing, they look at that video and then they're led astray. And sometimes it's not intentional. The people just see someone else do something and then they put that up on YouTube, trying to just, for whatever reason, and unfortunately for quite a few, it's to get that fame. Everyone wants their 15 minutes of fame, but they're making that, they want that 2 cent per view kind of revenue coming in. And the problem that bothers me is, I'm not like one of these hardcore animal right activists, but when it comes to ranching and farming, even small farming, homesteading, hobby farming, is these animals don't have a choice. They depend on you. And so I don't want your animals to suffer and for you to be in a bind. So it's one of those things of, you can't trust everything you see. And I guess even don't take my word for it, but I'm going to tell you stuff that is going to be solid, regardless of what kind of breed of hog you want to do, and regardless of where you're at, because I understand it's different for everybody and what you're trying to do. So this is something that you can do. What I'm going to tell you isn't quite a commercial hog operation, but it's definitely something, if you just want to raise one hog to top out and feed, or if you want to do several, and even do like some breeder hogs too. And something I thought about too is, you know, when you do everything by the book, it's going to come out okay. Well, not always, because it depends on who writes the book, right? And so it's the same thing on YouTube. So that being said, some hog pen tips. When you're building here's some dimension I'm going to give you, and hopefully here in a couple months I'll be able to show you what I'm doing, and do some fun videos like that, and the children are chomping at the bit to help too. And that is this: when you're looking at doing just like a feeder pen, top hog, whatever you want to call it, basically hog you're going to raise for the meat, you're looking at maximum 250 pounds. An 8-foot by 16-foot pen is going to be more than sufficient for if you're going to do one hog. And then like a 4x8 shed as well will be fine for your hog, because you're trying to keep them out of the weather, and especially here I don't have any trees or anything, so I'm trying to keep them out of the sun to offer some shade for them. And you can do that with hog panels and T-posts. And the hog panel is, I believe, about 3.5. I can't remember the dimensions. Anyways, so you can do that with just some T-posts and some hog panel, and you can even put piglets. So if you're raising piglets and you're trying to separate them and trying to get them to where you need to sell them, this dimension will work out perfectly. Again, 8 feet wide by 16 foot long, and the nice thing about that is the hog panels come in 16 foot lengths. So you're going to need 3 panels, and then you're going to have some sort of a gate. Go buy a gate, make you a gate, whatever you got to be. And that's the one thing too, is this is my plug for inputs. Input costs will destroy you. It'll wreck you financially. It's one thing to, you got to have a good plan, but if you don't have the money and you can't sustain the money out several months when you're raising animals, you're going to quickly learn that you're going to be faced with some hard choices. So anyways, that's something to consider. So if you're going to do a larger hog pen, like a full blown, like, you know, you're going to raise hogs, and you're going to be above 250 pounds, you're going to want to do a 16 foot by 24 foot, and that'll be good for 1 or 2 hogs, or even like a boar. And that's, when you're looking at that, you're going to want to do basically a 16 foot shed by 8 foot deep. So, and that will help you not only minimize what you're trying to do, but also help with your dimensions of your hog pen. You're basically going to go the entire width of your hog pen and then come out 8 feet deep, because a full grown sow or boar, they're going to be 8-9 feet long. And so imagine like your sofa and the height of your counter, they're going to be 3-4 feet tall. So hogs get big. My grandfather likened them unto like a bulldozer, which they are. They will tear up the world if you let them, and they're strong. And if you're not careful, especially with a boar, they will injure you in a split second, and they can even kill you as well. So just something to keep in mind with that. And but with this, the construction can be a lot different. You're going to do, I'd recommend, it's called hog wire, hog fence. Field fence is how we know about it around here. It's the woven wire field fence. At minimum, there's the 38-inch, or you could even go upwards of the 4 foot as well, because you're going to need it. And then I usually do two barbed wire strands 6 inches apart at the top. And so you're going to want at least a 3-inch post, whether it's a round post or what have you, and put them at least at minimum 2 feet in the ground. If you can go further, that's even better. And just make sure you leave enough room up top for your field fence and your barbed wire to run around. And those will be about every 4 feet. It's going to have to be solid and strong. You can't get away with the T-post. Again, when you're dealing with something that's 4, 5, 6, 700 pounds, and it's just low to the ground, and they get determined, they'll get out. So that's what I've found worked the best. That's what my grandfather found worked the best. And you're definitely going to want to put that post on the outside of the fence. And a lot of people that make that mistake, they'll put the field fence on the outside of the post. You want it on the inside of the post, because when that hog goes to push against it, they're going to have to, they're not just going to be able to yank out those staples, which, believe me, if a hog gets determined, they will easily pull out them staples. So you definitely want to have it on the inside of the post. That way they've got not only they've got all that extra force to push against, and chance of them getting out are very highly unlikely. So, and then a perimeter fence system to detain your escaped hogs. That's something that, contrary to what people think, hogs will get out just like any animal. And a good fence makes for a good neighbor, and it just cuts down on the hassle and chasing things around. And depending on where you live at, if your hogs get out, they will tear things up fast, whether it's a garden, flower beds, whatnot. That's something that people don't tell you about on these YouTube channels, is hogs will tear up the world. You give them enough time and they'll tear things up. And I've seen a lot of videos where they put hogs on, on an acre. They say you need 10 acres, whatnot. What I'm curious about, and they never show you, I haven't come across any yet, is they don't tell you, or at least they won't show you after the fact, just how much damage, and I call it damage, that a hog can do to the ground, because that's just what they do. They naturally root up the ground. And unless you're going to put nose rings in them or something like that, like a rooting ring, which I personally don't like to do, that's why a pen system works so great. There's a lot of people that's why hogs are so popular, is you don't need a lot of space. It's not like a cow or a horse or something like that, where you need acres per head, depending on where you live, to feed. You can keep them in a confined space, and you don't want it too small. I'm giving you measurements that works good for 1 or 2 hogs. And through that, you're able to have enough space where they're not walking it off too. You gotta factor that in too. So definitely on top of your hog pens, I always like to have a perimeter fence, which is nice because too, depending on your setup, and if I can, like I say, if I can do something this year, I'll show you. You want to have a pen sitting vacant. That way it can have time to rest. It cuts down on just the smell and everything like that. And there's other ways to help cut down on the smell too. But you want to be able to not have a pen constantly being used year round. If you can help it, allow it to dry out just to rest for a bit. And so the perimeter fence is nice too, because for me, I plan on doing a lot of this stuff by myself, and I don't need help, or it's just hard for me to find help. I mean, if my kids aren't available or whatnot. So, and as part of that, you want to definitely have like a loading ramp system, because most hogs are not going to want to get up into a truck or trailer. And if you try lifting a 250-pound hog that's freaking out, excuse me, even if he knows you, have a loading ramp system. It's going to make your life a whole lot easier. Be able to back up your truck or trailer, and just do that. That will save you so much time and effort. Loading ramp system. And so what's interesting too is with your farrowing pen, you basically are going to have that same size of as your hog pen, that 16 by 24 foot. And the shed, you don't need it as long. You can have a 10-foot shed by 8 foot deep and then 6 foot high. And you want that so you can get in underneath there and you don't hit your head, and you're not like, getting down on all fours trying to help out your piglets or your sow, your gilt. And so that allows you to be able to work around in there. And with all these sheds, I'd recommend putting some sort of like 2x6 at minimum, 2x8, 2x10 on the inside of your shed, because they'll go right through the side of a shed. You got the corrugated metal, whatever it is, your tin, they'll go right through it if they get determined enough. So I would definitely line your shed with 2x4s or 2x6s, like, one just 6 inches off the ground or so, and the other one, 18 inches above that, kind of a thing. And that gives you not only something to staple to, but also it keeps your hogs in. And even if you want to go an extra measure, take some of that filled fence and wrap the inside of your shed with that, thus making sure that your hogs just won't get out, even if they're not up to any sort of mischievousness. And again, if you have your perimeter fence, they're out, but they're not out. And you don't have to go chasing down. They're not getting in the neighbor's garden, just destroying things. Especially if you head off to work in the morning. By the time you get back home, they've done a lot of damage. Because believe me, one hog can do a lot of damage. And by damage, again, I mean by just the rooting around and things like that, just doing what hogs are born to do. And so something too that I've seen on YouTube, and again, the thing that bothers me about YouTube is people just show you the rainbows and unicorns. They show you the good times, how much money you can make, $10,000 off an acre of hogs, which I've never seen that kind of money being made before too. And that's what bothers me as well, is they're doing it for the clickbait. So people tune into them. They've got their fancy camera angles and things like that. When I do a video for you guys, it's because I'm doing it. And as you see, I've got some basic editing stuff. I just don't have time to do all that kind of thing. And so I'm not doing it for the money, for those them clickbait, because I want people to be able to come to this channel and be able to get the honest information. Like I say, that if you go with this, you're not going to fail. And again, knowing that every region's different. Where I live, I go up north into the big city, and the climate's completely different. We're up here over 6,000 feet, and they haven't had snow on the ground 30 miles away, 40 miles away. They haven't had snow on the ground for 3-4 weeks now, and we still have snow even though it hasn't snowed. So again, I understand that, but I'm just giving you some basic concepts that's going to be able to help you out. And another thing too that people don't tell you about is pigs can jump. It's amazing to see a 300-400 pound animal not only jump, but almost climb and jump over a fence too. So when I see people that just let their pigs out to pasture and they have a little bit of barbed wire or like a couple strands of hot wire, pigs will go through hot wire too. If they're determined enough, they will. But at the same time, they're not going to show you all the run around they're having to do to chase them. And so they'll preach about this hot wire system. And again, no offense if you do have that and it works out for you perfect. I'm just telling you the information that, you want to do it, just do it right for the least amount of work possible. and something that you're going to be happy with for a lot of years to come. And you want something that's going to work for you too. It's, they always say the most permanent thing on a ranch or farm is that temporary fence. So just do it right, and you're done with it. So as far as, again, going back to the input costs, when it comes to like a feeding thing, people buy, really expensive feeders and things like automatic, or, you dump like 100 pounds into a feeder and then they get it as they want. That's great and all. I personally like to control what I feed to my hogs, the amount I feed. And so, and again, it goes back to input costs. And what I tell folks is, the nice thing about feeding your animals twice a day is you get to check on them. So you make sure everything's okay, they're doing all right, and you want to be able to handle these animals with relative ease. So if you're never around, they're going to be afraid of you. If you got to handle them somehow, or pick up a piglet or something like that, they're not going to be familiar with you like they would if you're around twice a day. So for me, I guess that's where I'm old school. Twice a day, you come, you feed them, you give them a couple pounds twice a day, depending on what you're trying to raise. And I'll go into that on a different video, whatnot. But and it's the same with watering. People do the auto waters, that's fine, but hogs will break it off eventually. And so, you come, you leave in the morning and you come back at the end of the day, you're dog tired, and then you've got this huge mess to clean up. And so it's kind of the same thing of, I have cheap waters, basically a plastic barrel, and then I run a metal piece of, like a rod or some piece of rebar, so they can't get and sit inside and bathe in it. So, because that's their drinking water. And definitely when it comes to your waters and feeding troughs, is my grandpa, and I'll use it. It's buried under the snow right now, but big cement slabs to put your feeders on top of. That way, again, they won't try and bury them into the ground, because the hogs will do that. It's amazing what they can do, the power that they have. And so that just kind of helps to keep the area a little bit drier and more stable. But again, it prevents them from burying that trough into the ground. See, I said about hot wire. If you're going to do hot wire, just prepare for problems. A short, hogs they'll slough stuff, they'll mound up dirt, and that will short out your wire. Maybe you don't have solar, windstorm or something happens. You got to have a backup plan, because they got a sixth sense about these things. They'll bust out. They know when that power is not on and going to it. So, man, I don't know if there's anything else for the time being. I'm trying to keep this video short, but I'm just trying to help people out by telling them things that they can and cannot do. And again, I guess trial and error, experiment, but these things I told you. Oh, and I actually did. I was going to show you this. I'm glad I did. Let me pull it out of I kind of did a diagram. I don't know if you're able to see that. Can't even tell. So you can see kind of and this, you can do whatever. I got the perimeter fence and then loading ramp, farrowing pen. So I now have several several pens, just because, again, everything I just talked about, I want to do more than just a feeder hogs. But if you're just going to do a feeder top hog at 250 pounds, just do the one pen, and you're probably going to be okay. But definitely, even for your one pen, you're going to want to have a little loading ramp. It's just going to, again, it's going to make it so much easier. Anyways, if you have any more questions, leave them down in the comments section. I always tend to forget things that I gotta say, but I think that's about as much as I gotta say for the now. One more thing before I let you go. You don't want to mix your hogs, and by that I mean, I've seen that where people just let the sow and the boar and the piglets, they all just kind of run together. The problem with that is you can't control how much each animal is getting as far as feed. You'll have it where the boar is eating all the food, you got sows that are starving, and piglets and whatnot, and it just helps it to have the separation of the pens. Again, that's been my best experience, especially if you're going to do start doing breeding stock and that kind of thing, or you're buying different animals at different times, depending on your setup that you want. So that's why for me in that diagram, I have different hog pens for different purposes. And mainly it's just so I can kind of keep things separate. And you want to control your breeding when your breeding happens too. Oh, and speaking of that, you definitely want your boar kind of out of sight, out of mind when it comes to your boar and your sow. he's going to smell her and he's going to try and come to that fence. But if you can have some sort of like visual barrier, he's not going to be able to associate that smell with what he's seeing just the next pen over. So if you do have to have them close or something like that, you definitely want some sort of separation, not only separation distance wise, but like a physical barrier too. So that's it, guys. Again, leave any comments or questions in the comments section below. Remember, always keep them civil. And I appreciate you coming along today. Hopefully I was your ticket to help escape the ordinary and find out just what it's like to live the high life here on the High Desert Ranch and Homestead channel.